Hello everybody, welcome to another Valheim video. Today I'm bringing you an Expand World Prefabs Valheim scripting session. To get started, we're going to need to get some music. I personally recommend listening to something like this. You should pick one you like. Next, we're going to go to Discord and then close that. You go on Discord to figure out what you're going to do and to get ideas or to get help. But if you actually want a script, you got to keep that Discord shut. So we got our music, we shut Discord, and then we need to open up our FTP client so we can access the server. If you're doing it on single player, then you do the same thing except just with File Explorer. We're gonna go into our server, and then bring up our very cluttered and disorganized Expand Prefab section. You see, there's a couple of things that I need to do, but I'm not gonna be able to do all of them in this video. So I'm just gonna access the simplest one and do one task. But really, in order to do this, you need to have Valheim running. Like, I don't know what it is, but scripting with Valheim not running and scripting with Valheim running is a very different feeling. Haha, this is so much better. You see, now we're no longer blind scripting. We have our script and the game active. Something about having both of these up just feels awesome. And it's a big part of getting in the zone for your scripting session, or whatever you want to call this. That being said, you should probably find some kind of test island somewhere in your map, far out of reach from players, that you can occupy, and go there when you really need to get your juices flowing. This way you have a place to do all of your crazy experiments that don't make any sense until they actually work in the last moment. Speaking of that, you'll also need some way to remember what you're doing, and I find that impossible, so I need to write on a piece of paper next to me, like I have right now. That's how I know to tell you that our task is to fix something that I made earlier. Or rather, update it, let's say. So if we flip our UI back on, and here we have the offending object, the cart. As usual, the cart's misbehaving. You see, there's a system now, so if you take stuff around, boom, there you go. You see that message, Overeager Jarl is carting in the Black Forest? Well, in this case, it worked perfectly, because I'm actually holding the cart. But now I've put the cart over here, in the plains, and we're just gonna drop it off this rock. And yeah, it's working. Well, that was actually inconvenient. I thought it wouldn't work properly, but it worked properly. So now I have to actually explain instead of showing you, which is horrible. You see, the problem is that some players are getting this message when they haven't been doing anything with a cart. And it turns out that's because I didn't make it check how far away the player is. So a cart just gets damaged, and then a player some mysterious distance away receives a message about a cart, and they have no idea what it is. So here's our handy-dandy script that handles the cart notifying system made with Expand World Prefabs. I won't go through this whole thing, but it's pretty much a bunch of the same stuff copy-pasted over and over again in different circumstances. And it all has to do with the biome, but you don't really need to understand that. What I have to figure out is what is wrong with each entry that's causing the cart to target players that are really far away. And spoiler, this is actually a lot easier than it would normally be because I already know the answer to this. This problem is happening because the cart doesn't care how far away the player is. It just says to the nearest player that the cart got hurt. So let's break this down a little bit so that it's easier to understand. We have our typical create prefab here, so we're messing with the sound effects that the cart makes when it's hit and takes damage. And we're running it on a weight of 0.1, which means it'll approximately happen 10% of the time that the cart takes damage. We have this thing here, which I'm not going to explain to you. We also have this spawns thing here, which I'm also not going to explain to you. Then we have the biomes. This part tells you which biome it can occur in, and it's a very handy filter to allow us to stop things from happening in one place or another. Then we have fallback true, and I'm also not going to explain that to you. Nor am I going to explain this banned global keys. All I'll say is that the commands are what make the message happen, right? So we see the message carting in the meadows. The problem is that the cart doesn't care how far away the player is. It doesn't even care about there being a player there. So let's make this cart care about a player being very close by. We can accomplish this with a simple objects filter. All we have to do is write objects, colon, and then underneath your double space, and then the prefab name, in this case, player, a comma, and then the distance that you want it to care about. We're gonna go with 5. In general, it's good to use either 3, 5, 10, 20. These kind of numbers are usually what you're gonna go for. We're gonna go for 5. This means that when the sound effects for the cart is created 10% of the time, and there is a player within 5 meters, everything else is gonna happen. Now that's only half of the script, but it's the only half I'm gonna explain to you, because you don't need to know the rest yet, and this video will get long and daunting if I include everything, so here you go. Now that we've made this one change, we have to make the same fix apply to all other occurrences. And as you can see, there's a lot of different layers here. And that's where Notepad is just not gonna cut it anymore. We're gonna need to bring out the big boys. Here we have Sublime Text. And I'm just gonna take our script from earlier and paste it into Sublime Text. When you really wanna do stuff and you wanna do it well, you do it in something like Sublime Text or Atom or whatever bulk text editor programming tool you like to use. You see, we added this part here. So let's copy it and then take it away. Now all of these occurrences are pretty much the same. I have to make the same change to all of them. So what I need to do is figure out something that I can use as a marker that's in all of these occurrences. Conveniently, I already know that all I have to do is search for something like band objects and then do a find all. This is going to give me a cursor in the same place of each occurrence. So now all I have to do is get this cursor to go to the right place. And the right place is in between any of these parameters. We're gonna go with over here. But now we have a problem, because what if these lines are different lengths? Well, don't worry, you can just use the end key, which is going to the end of each line, and then enter. And now we can paste in our stuff from earlier. But we can see that this is a problem. Let's undo that, and then actually get rid of that tab. And now when we paste, we get proper alignment. If you do something like this, it's gonna break your script. You have to make sure everything is aligned properly. Now we can scroll up and see that we have added the objects player to every occurrence in the document. So we can select the entire thing and replace the file. Then we paste the new file in and save it. Make sure to refresh the save on your server. The glorious thing about Expand World Prefabs is the updates happen live. You'll notice in the top left there was a disconnection icon, and now it is gone. Believe it or not, the file sizes that you see here are directly relevant to the length of that disconnection icon. These files may be tiny, but it is completely possible to do a live update that's too big, and it actually kicks everybody off the server. Pretty much it. That's all you need to know to get into Expand World Prefab scripting. Now, if you want to get started on this kind of thing yourself, you can use any BepInEx server or your own computer. Personally, I like to use Zap Hosting. And they're actually the hosts for the Path of Magic server, which is an Expand World Prefabs project that I've been working on with a few other people. Zap allows you to easily get started with a Valheim BepInEx server, and you can pick one close to you that works out. Moving forward, Valheim needs around 5 gigabytes of RAM to run properly, so you need to select 3. In addition to that, you don't really need to worry about the CPU thing. You can just use the normal one. There's not going to be a huge difference, and there is a huge difference in cost, so only get this if you can really afford it. And that's it. Once you get it started, it'll register, and then after a little bit, you'll be able to go into the main Zap website. And yes, I am showing you the server information for Path of Magic if you want to join. I mean, you're in the end of the video. If you want to check this stuff out, you're welcome. Make sure to check out the Discord channel too. You can find a link in the description of this video to go there. But there's a few other things that you need to know regardless of what server host that you use. And don't worry at all, you're perfectly entitled to use whatever server host you want. As long as BepInEx is on the host, you're good. In general, there's a couple mods that you'll need to install in order to have the best experience. The first one, of course, is not actually Expand World Prefabs, although that is my favorite. You will definitely need server Devcommands. Pretty much no matter what you do, if you have a Valheim server, you need this mod, because without it, you can't easily manage the server. It's plain and simple. That's why it has 500,000 downloads. This is mandatory. Next we have Upgrade World. This allows you to change things and alter things and gives you a huge degree of bulk control over the world. The easiest way to think of it, actually, is the same way we used those text editors earlier. I showed you a simple one, Notepad, and then a much more capable one, Sublime Text. It's the same thing here. You got regular Valheim Devcommands that you normally use in just vanilla Valheim, and then you have Upgrade World. It is next level vanilla Valheim Devcommands. After that, we have Expand World Prefabs, which is the bread and butter that has enabled all of this, and then World Edit Commands. This is another really useful tool that allows you to read and edit the fields of things, which you'll learn a lot more about, trust me. But that's not all. I have one final piece of advice, and I saved it for the very end of the video. Well, sometimes the server hosts have different configurations for the config in BepInEx. As far as I understand, this file may be set up differently, and also your server, depending on the different hosting options that you're using, or if you're self-hosting. I'm going to share the two settings that I always change when I set up a new server. If I don't change these two settings, then Expand World Prefabs does not work for me. The first thing I change is under the chain loader. You see the default value here is set to false, but we're going to make it true. The second thing here is under logging.console. Here, there's a section about closing the console and that sort of thing, and the default value is false, but we make it true. And these are the two settings that make things work for me. That's all you need to know. These are the things, the mistakes most people make. They forget to install server Devcommands, and then only certain things work, or they have some kind of weird config thing with how their server host set everything up. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.